Picture it. The dead of night, March 1942. The Second World War comes absolutely crashing into a place that felt like a world away from the front lines. The sleepy harbor of Castries, St. Lucia. Today, we're going to talk about a single audacious U-boat raid, one that completely shattered a community's sense of safety and really changed the course of the war in the Caribbean.
That quote, those were the frantic words of a 5-year-old girl jolted from her sleep on the passenger liner Lady Nelson. I mean, that cry just throws you right into the chaos of that night, doesn't it? You can almost smell the smoke, hear the wood splintering. A peaceful harbor just violently transformed into a battlefield.
And that really is the central mystery here. See, this attack, it wasn't just some distant military operation. For the people there, it felt like a home invasion. So the big question is, how? How on earth did a German submarine slip past all the defenses and strike with such devastating precision, right in the heart of what was supposed to be a safe harbor?
Okay, so to really get the shock of this, you got to understand the mindset at the time. We're talking early 1942, and the Caribbean, well, it was only just beginning to feel the war's presence. For a lot of ports, Castries included, things were still running on that old peacetime rhythm.
And you know what? That feeling of security, that was their biggest vulnerability. You had ships docking, crews resting, passengers sleeping. Everyone just assumed the war was something that happened out there, way out in the deep ocean. The harbor was supposed to be a sanctuary. But that sanctuary? Yeah, it was built on a totally, fatally flawed assumption. All right, let's flip the script and look at this from the hunter's perspective. The man in charge of U-161 was Kapitan Leutnant Albrecht Achilles. And lucky for us, historically speaking, we have his war diary. And it gives us this chillingly methodical look at how he saw Castries. To him, it wasn't a paradise. Nope, it was a tactical problem that needed solving. And when you look at the U-boat's log, you see just how patient and precise this whole thing was. The channel was way too shallow to risk going in submerged, so Achilles had to surface. He had to creep in, slowly, under the cover of what his own diary calls a bright, starry, clear night. Can you imagine? For almost 2 hours, he just stalked his prey, lining up the absolute perfect shot.
And you can literally feel the tension right there in the diary entry. This was not your routine open ocean hunt. The crew was feeling this immense pressure, operating just a couple hundred meters from shore. I mean, think about it. One mistake, one slip-up, they run aground, and their mission and their lives are over. There was absolutely zero room for error.
So for Achilles, this harbor wasn't a pretty view. It was a puzzle box with a very specific set of constraints. First, he had to navigate this super shallow channel, only 9 meters deep. Then, he had to use this thing called the Tappian Rock Shoal as a pivot point to swing the sub around. And finally, get into the perfect position to fire and make a clean getaway. Every single move was calculated.
And this is the moment where the two stories collide. You've got the sleeping ships at anchor on one side and the stalking U-boat on the other, its torpedo tubes ready to go. All that tension that's been building inside the submarine is about to be unleashed on the entire harbor.
It's almost, anticlimactic in how brief it is. Just that single, clinical line in the war diary. Shot from tubes 3 and 4. And just like that, 2 torpedoes were in the water. The fate of 2 ships and the lives of dozens of people were sealed in that single instant.
And here's where you see that brutal disconnect. While Achilles is coldly noting the target speed is 0 knots, on board the Lady Nelson and the SS Mtata, it's just total chaos. The human cost of that one clinical log entry was immediate, and it was absolutely devastating. So, as dawn starts to break, the attack goes from being this terrifying thing that happened in the dark to a horrifying public spectacle. The people of Castries woke up to find the war, quite literally, wrecked right on their doorstep. 66 people. That's crew members, passengers, dock workers, all killed. Not out in the middle of the Atlantic, but right there in the harbor, right where the town could see it. This wasn't some abstract number in a newspaper. These were neighbors, family, and friends. And that's what makes a harbor attack so psychologically damaging. It just shatters that fundamental idea of safety. A port is supposed to be a sanctuary, right? The end of a dangerous journey. But this attack, it turned that whole idea completely inside out. The impact was just profound. This wasn't some distant rumor. The whole town saw it, they heard it. Those burning, sinking ships became this constant, visible reminder of just how vulnerable they were. And get this, the shock was so great that authorities actually told residents to flee their own capital city and head for the hills. Just incredible.
And the shockwaves from what happened in Castries spread way beyond just St. Lucia. This one single audacious raid served as a brutal wake-up call for Allied forces all across the Caribbean.
And the change was, wow, it was dramatic and immediate. All those complacent peacetime routines, gone, replaced overnight with hardened wartime procedures. Open harbors were sealed up. They even installed a massive anti-submarine net across the entrance to Castries Harbor, a classic case of, locking the door after the wolf is already long gone.
But ultimately, the biggest impact wasn't physical, it was psychological. The raid proved that no port was truly safe. Achilles' attack forced this fundamental shift in thinking. Suddenly, every coastline, every harbor, every quiet little anchorage in the Caribbean, it was all part of the front line now. And fear? Fear travels a whole lot faster than warships.
So the story of Castries really leaves us with this one stark question. This whole tragedy was born from a feeling of safety, and it forced an entire region to accept that true security, well, it isn't someplace you can hide. It's a constant, vigilant posture you have to hold, always.